There's a lot of people who say, I don't want to start a business because I don't like sales. And I'm like, well, then you're not doing life because everything in life is sales, right?
Yeah.
You've got to, sales is nothing more than negotiation influence, right? So if you don't have influence over or influence to help somebody make decisions
Yeah.
and you're not good at negotiating, like you're not going to be able to negotiate your own salaries. You're not going to be able to ask for raises. You're not going to be able to show your value in a company. And I think that there's this misconception that's out there that if we've dealt with something and we've healed from it and we've learned something from it, that it's our obligation to share that with the world so that we can pass along those lessons. And, I'll talk to my clients all the time and I'll say, don't share stories. Don't share information. Don't share parts of your life that are not related to something that you want to be the face of a platform for.
Welcome everyone to another episode of Your Lab Central. Today I have with me Amber. So Amber, would you like to tell our audience why they should be excited about this conversation today?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here. I'm super excited to be here. I think that the most exciting thing that we really get to dig into and what I love about what I get to do so much is really the human behavior aspect of being business owners or being human, really. There's
Okay.
so much we don't know or don't understand about the ways that our brain processes information. And I'm just a big believer that the more you learn, the more you understand, the more you can accomplish in your life.
Okay. Now, since we're talking about business owners and humans, I, I know if every human being out there has the capacity or the capability to become a business owner, but definitely every business owner can be a human being. Now, where do you draw the line? What sets a normal person and a business owner apart?
I think that there's a few different things. So I don't think business ownership is for everybody. That was actually one of the things that was frustrating for me when I started in this industry was it felt like back in 2017, 2018, when I was first starting to think about entering into the coaching world, the messaging that was out there was if you want to have control over your life, if you want to have freedom, you need to be a business owner. And that is shitty advice. It's horrible advice. Because the reality is the people who make the best business owners are normally risk averse.
Yeah.
They're willing to put themselves out there with no guarantee of a particular outcome. Oftentimes, we work twice as much as we would if we were just going
Yeah.
to a 9 to 5 job, right? There's a reason that we're called to be business owners. And so I think that the first thing is understanding that number one, it's not meant for everybody. And if it's not meant for you, that's okay.
Mhm.
We don't get to let other people dictate what success means to us. If somebody wants to work for a government job or wants to work for a 9 to 5, let's find ways for you to be fulfilled in that environment that you're in. It's
Mhm.
okay to not be a business owner. It's okay to be a business owner. What's not okay is to pretend that you don't have control over your life and your happiness and your fulfillment and just complain about your circumstances all day long.
Now, on that note, it's just that across the globe, there is a surge, okay, thanks to all the media hype that these startups are getting. And whenever somebody cashes in a huge check, getting a lot of funding, it becomes huge news and it becomes like this startup founder is a star now. So there's this huge surge in everybody trying to become a business owner. And then there's a lot of frustration attached with it, right? Uh, Now, is there a specific marker that people can look for when they're trying to think that, yeah, I also want to become somebody who's cashed in a huge check, become a startup founder or something?
Yeah, I think if you're going into business ownership to cash in a huge check, that's your first red flag.
Yeah.
It's not realistic,
Yeah.
right? What we're going to make as a business owner is relative to the value that we solve. And that's not just even as a business owner, that's as a human being. What
Yeah.
I think happens all too often in every area of life. I mean, I opened my first business in 2017.
Mhm.
People look at me now, almost 10 years later, and they're like, oh my gosh, Amber, you're traveling the world. You have location independence. You're speaking on stages. You've got these trainings. You've written a book. I want your life. Okay, well, here's my calendar. And here's the work that I've put into the last
Yeah.
10 years to get to where I am now. And they're
Yeah.
like, oh, I don't want to do all that. Well, then you don't want my life, right? So I think what happens in every area and aspect of human behavior, I'm a big fan of music and songwriting and this overnight success idea of songwriters where like one day this guy just shows up and he has a hit and they're like, "Oh my gosh, you came out of nowhere." And he's like, "I came out of nowhere. I've been busting my ass for the last 15 years in bars and clubs, right?"
Yeah.
So by the time we see the big check on the back end, it has been failed business and bankruptcy and credit card debt and broken families and broken
Yeah.
relationships and choices and decisions about what we want our life to be and choices to not take trips that we couldn't take and decisions to work really crappy jobs so that we could pay our bills while we were building our business. Like
Mhm.
nobody sees that. They
Yeah.
see the checks, they see you on stages, they see you traveling the world, they see the private jets, they see, the Rolex watches, and they're like, I want that life.
Yeah.
Good, but be prepared to work your butt off for it.
Mhm. So that's one. I mean, the dedication required is on the next level already. I mean, working two shifts, working all the shifts. I don't know if just two shifts is right, but yeah, business owners have to be ready to put that effort, right? At least in the starting years when they don't have a team, they are building it out and going on, right? Now, since we're also talking about human behavior, right? Now, the general person who goes gets a job and the person who's out there becoming an entrepreneur, right? Uh, but there's also the fact that a lot of people or a lot of career coaches say that you have to become an intrapreneur in your own company, even as an employee trying to sell yourself. You are your own company and stuff like that. How do you relate to that and put that in the human behavior perspective?
So I think that it's dependent on your industry, right? There is no doubt that we are in a generation and a social time frame right now where um, who's running your company can dictate the success of it based on their morals and their values. That is fairly new, right? If
Right.
we go back 20, 30, 40 years, nobody cared where Nike stood politically. Nobody cared where, any of these companies were spending their money to campaign dollars. Like these weren't even conversations we were having, right?
Yeah.
If you hired a CEO and that CEO was, cheating on their wife, nobody cared.
Yeah.
Or cheating on their husband, nobody cared. We are in a world right now where everybody cares about those things. So, do you need to be the face of your business? Not necessarily, unless you are your business, right? So, for example, I'm in a service-based industry. I'm an attorney by trade. I am the face of my law firm. I'm also the face of my coaching business because when people come to me, I am the product that they are hiring. If we go by shoes, we don't care who the face of the product is. We care what the shoes do, right? So I think to answer your question on whether you need to be the face of your company and you need to be on social media and you need to be your brand, it really depends on whether you're the product. Um, Even if you're not the product, though, your choice, well, and then, so before I go down that road, there's another side of it as well, which is, are you building something that you potentially want to sell? Are you building something that you want to live beyond you, right? Are you building an
You.
organization that somebody else could take over and run?
Mhm.
Or are you just providing a career for yourself while you're here? Those are two different strategies. And
Mhm.
then lastly, the team that you hire is incredibly important because the wrong person with the wrong values and the wrong morals and they don't align with your company can tank it.
Mhm.
So if you hire somebody that the mass public doesn't agree with and you agree with them, then at least you're taking your company in the direction that you want to go. But if you hire somebody that you don't agree with and then they tank your company because of their morals, values, and beliefs, now you're in a really crappy situation.
Actually, the question, I mean, you took it in a different direction. I'll rephrase the question that I wanted to ask. Okay, so basically, the coaching that a lot of people share on LinkedIn is that you are the CEO of your own brand in your own company as an employee, right?
Hmm.
Okay, so you're basically an entrepreneur in yourself, solo, trying to sell yourself as a product when you're working as an employee for an organization,
Yeah,
right? And but then when you're an entrepreneur in yourself, you're basically doing it for a different company, a product, a service, or whatever. But
yeah,
can this actually be related? Okay, is what I want to ask. That as
got it.
an employee, are you actually trying to do that? And obviously, as an entrepreneur, you are doing that.
Yeah, I think it is 100% related. I mean, there's a lot of people who say, I don't want to start a business because I don't like sales. And I'm like, well, then you're not doing life because everything in life is sales, right?
Yeah.
You've got to, sales is nothing more than negotiation influence, right? So if you don't have influence over or influence to help somebody make decisions
Uh,
and you're not good at negotiating, like you're not going to be able to negotiate your own salaries. You're not going to be able to
yeah.
ask for raises. You're not going to be able to show your value in a company. So I think um, zero disrespect with this next statement for everybody who's listening, because there is a need for every type of person in business.
That's right.
There's no doubt, though, that there are those people who just want to go to work and go home. And
Uh-huh.
that's okay.
Yeah.
They're not going to be CEOs, they're not going to be leaders. They're going to be the people that do grunt work because they go to work, they clock out, they go home.
Yeah.
And they're needed, right? Like because there's a lot of us that don't want to do the work that we're hiring those people to do.
That's
The
right.
higher up a corporate ladder that you want to climb as an employee, the more important it is that you do think of yourself as a brand, that
Mm-hmm.
you think of yourself as um, your loyalty is to you and to your success. And as long as that vision and the vision of the company that you're working for align, it's a win-win.
Mm-hmm.
What happens all too often is companies go in different directions. Employees no longer align with those directions, but they haven't spent any time building their identity within the company. So if they are trying to pitch themselves to other companies or trying to get another job, it's like they're starting all over because they haven't treated themselves as an individual brand. So I do think that it's important to look at yourself that way. I also think it makes you more invaluable as an employee.
Mm-hmm.
Like I want to hire people who have a brain.
Mm-hmm.
If what I wanted, and my virtual assistant in the Philippines is fantastic. So I'm going to start by saying that. She is incredible. And the way that virtual assistants work is you give them a task, they do the task. When you start getting up to executive assistants and,
Yeah.
C-level suites for your business, I'm not giving them the tasks anymore. We're
Yeah.
talking about what the goals are for the company, and then I'm relying on their knowledge, experience, and expertise to come up with ideas that I might not come up with on my own.
Yeah.
That's where it becomes really important to make sure that you're treating yourself as an individual brand.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Because, I mean, there's a lot of people that are out here only to do grunt work and they're not looking to grow, right? So,
Hmm.
makes sense. Now,
But I will say, on that note, for people who are just looking to do online work,
uh-huh.
what makes you hireable or chosen above and beyond somebody else is the ability to bring different perspectives. When I hired my virtual assistant, I told her, I said, like, I will tell you if there's ever anything I'm afraid you're going to mess up. She started taking over my social media, she would send me drafts of posts and
Mm-hmm.
she would say, what do you think about this? And I would say, if I've got to review the post, I'm just going to post it. Like, you're not going to say anything that I can't delete or take back or undo. And if you do, I'll tell you, hey, don't use this verbiage again. Let's do it different next time, and you'll learn from it. Um, when I look for people to join my companies, even at a low admin level, I'm looking for people who will come to me and say, "Hey, Amber, I think that we could be more effective in this place." Or even more importantly, Amber, I've been asking you for this information so I can do my job for the last 2 weeks and you haven't gotten to me yet. I can't do my job if you don't give me what I need. Most business owners, most entrepreneurs are so busy and they're so in the weeds with their business that if you sit back and wait for them to give you tasks before you do things, you get replaced by somebody who's willing to take the initiative to have an idea.
Mhm. Yeah, that is terribly relatable. I don't know. It just hit me on the spot there. Okay. Now let's go back to the previous discussion that we were having, right? About social going on social media and being in this world where the CEO is now the parameter for companies to be successful, right? How do you think that we got here? Okay. Is it because of the hyper connectivity that we are seeing currently? Human beings are just more connected than they were before. I mean, earlier we had Nike, we had, I mean, these are brands, right? I mean, I don't know if you'd still call them brands, but we still had Ford, we still had Nike who were selling shoes. But now, when you talk about, when somebody, a coach talks about Nike, they're not talking about shoes. They're talking about, Nike is all about just do it. How did we get here?
Yeah. So I think there's a couple different answers to your question. One's probably going to get me canceled, and one's going to get me hired. So I'm going to give you both. Um, I think there's a couple of different reasons. I think, yes, we have more information and knowledge and availability to information and knowledge
Yeah.
than ever before. We
Yeah.
can find out almost anything about anybody that we want to know.
Yeah.
So there's two different directions I think we go with this. The first is when you have a brand that is massively successful,
Mhm.
we want to know and understand and study how they became massively successful.
Yeah, that's right.
Marketing doesn't change. Humans don't change. The method of marketing from the 50s, 60s, 70s, and now in the 2020s, right?
Yeah.
That changes because now we got to look at social media. We got to look at the
Mhm.
platforms that we're using, but the
Yes.
methods that we're using, it has been, people either run towards pleasure or away from pain. That idea has not changed since human behavior started
Right.
being a thing, right?
Yeah.
When we were cavemen, we were either running towards food or away from being somebody's food. Like those were our two choices. And nothing
Right.
about that has changed when it comes to marketing.
Uh-huh.
It's just that we are no longer running from saber-toothed tigers. Now we're either running towards solutions that we think are going to give us some of our time back, or we're running away from things that we think are going to make us miserable. Like nothing's changed. So when we market our companies, we start looking at how are people portraying this pleasure pain conversation. Then you have companies like Apple, like Nike, like companies that have built almost a cult following. Like
Yeah.
people's identities are tied up. I mean, you want to break up a room real quick, start separating out the Android and iPhone people. Like you will have, it's like red ants and black
Yeah.
ants, right?
Yeah.
People have built this following and these brand loyalties. So we start studying that a little bit. And we're like, how did these companies go from selling a product to actually being a movement, right? So we dig into that a little bit. This, I think, is the genuous part of how we get in this conversation. This is where we want to know everything about these companies because we want to model it and recreate it and figure out what works in our business. The other side is not as glamorous. We are in a world where attention makes money
Yes.
and it doesn't matter how you get it. So if
Mm-hmm.
someone can get clicks and views and ad spend and money
Mm-hmm.
by talking about a CEO cheating on their wife,
Yeah.
they will make the same amount of money that they would, if not more,
Uh,
than talking about how good their product and service is. So when you
yeah.
say, how did we get here to where the CEO can make or break your company, not because of their skills, but because of their values and their morals and who they are. I think more than ever, we are in a society where people are numbing their own problems by focusing on other people's, where it's easier for us to focus on somebody else's life problems than focus on ours. So when we see news that we think is newsworthy, it takes our mind off of what
Our
we're
own
dealing with a
options.
little bit, becomes entertainment. Um, we're also part of a society right now. I mean, now this is coming from an American standpoint, and everybody knows what's going on in American politics and culture right now. But we are in a world where people want to be offended. Like sometimes being offended is the only emotion that some people
Mhm.
hear.
Yeah.
So all of these things combined, I think, is why who you hire is so important because they're either going to become the spotlight because they're doing something great for your company and they're building a movement and people want to know more about that, or they're going to become the spotlight for your company because they did something that mass amounts of people disagree with that they're now making money on through clickbait articles. What's really interesting to me is the worst place you can be is in the middle where nobody knows who the hell you are. So
Uh,
whether you're in the news because something horrible happened or whether you are in the news because something fantastic happened, at least people are talking about you and
mhm.
people will rally around you. We've all seen situations where somebody tries to cancel an artist or cancel a brand, and then everybody who's anti-cancel culture gets behind them, and now they have this massive increase in sales just from people defending the
Yeah.
underdog, right? And then we've seen people the other way that they do something fantastic and everybody wants to support them because it's this feel-good story. They bought a car for an employee that was
Yeah.
walking to work, like whatever it is. The
Yeah.
worst place you can be is in a place where nobody's talking about you.
Now, this worst place that nobody is talking about, right? Now, this is again, I don't know, should I call it a boon or a bane in this world of social media specifically, right? Because some people like to keep it low, having a low profile, at least in the beginning years, right? But then you have to be on one of these sides. And
Yeah.
as a person who, or as an entrepreneur, if somebody is of the type where they like to keep their business low profile, but now they are at this point where they now have to scale, they have to go out into the world. Can they bring this mindset change?
Yeah, we can always bring a mindset change. And um, I think you can stay low profile in your personal life
Mm.
and scale your company at the same time, right? So when I wrote my book, people ask me all the time, like, it's really personal. There's a lot of information about myself in there that the world knows now. And through, 4 years or 5 years of hosting my podcast, there's very little that somebody wouldn't be able to piece together about my life if that's what they wanted to do. But
Mhm.
there are some things that I've kept close to the vest that only the people that are closest to me know. And I think that there's this misconception that's out there that if we've dealt with something and we've healed from it and we've learned something from it, that it's our obligation to share that with the world so that we can pass along those lessons. And, I'll talk to my clients all the time and I'll say, don't share stories, don't share information, don't share parts of your life that are not related to something that you want to be the face of a platform for. Right? Like I share my mental health journeys. I share my business journeys. I share my relationship with my mom. I share my relationship with physical fitness and weight loss. I share all of those things because I'm willing to be the public face of those conversations if something were to explode and blow up. There's also a lot of things about my life I don't share because I don't want that platform.
Mhm.
I don't want to be in those spaces. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that I'm self-conscious about those parts of my life. It just means that that doesn't serve the purpose that I have for
Right.
myself or my business. So
Mhm.
when we start talking about personal branding and scaling, I think intentionality is so incredibly important. We need to know what the reason is that we're sharing each thing and how it ties directly into a goal we have for our business.
Okay.
I think what goes a little bit more to the heart of your question, where most people fall, is many of us have been raised in a few different programmed mentalities. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. Don't brag about yourself. Nobody
Yeah.
likes a bragger. Don't talk about your successes because people will think that you're entitled and that you're egotistical. Um, don't talk about money, religion, and politics. I break that rule every damn day. Don't talk about money, religions, and politics. It's just going to upset people. Don't offend people. All of these beliefs are programs that have written the way that we're willing to show up in the world.
Mhm.
So those are the programs that we get to shift and change because you cannot scale if you're not willing to ruffle feathers, because that's what gets people to understand who you are and what you're
Yeah.
about. You cannot scale if you're not willing to talk about your successes. Nobody's going to hire you if you don't talk about what you've been good at. There's a difference between nice and kind. Sometimes,
Yeah.
like I joke both as an attorney and a coach that sometimes I wonder why people hire me because I'm an asshole.
Mhm.
I'm really kind though.
Mhm.
Sometimes the things I say aren't nice. Like if you tell me
Mhm.
that you want to have $1 million business,
Uh-huh.
and then you also tell me that you don't have time to make sales calls, and then you also tell me that you watched 4 seasons of Grey's Anatomy last week, my conversations aren't going to sound very nice to you,
That's
but
right.
they are going to be really kind. So
Uh-huh.
I think that we get to reshape the way we're showing up in the world. And there's a really good book called The Courage to Be Disliked. And whether you read the book or not, the title says it all. If we are going to accomplish anything in this world, if
Mhm.
we are going to grow a business, we have to be willing to be disliked by people that don't agree with us.
Mhm. Now, okay. That that's right. I don't know where to pinpoint right now, but yeah, it sums it up a lot. Because if you're not willing to have that confidence, going out and doing something, ruffling feathers, then you're not actually willing to be creating value, right, for others as well. Because
Yeah, nobody will care. And I'm not saying go out and ruffle feathers just to stir the pot and,
yeah.
grab a camera and make some content.
Mhm.
If I'm really passionate about something,
Mhm.
and like one of the things I'm really passionate about, don't come to me and tell me that you want to make more money and also come to me and tell me that you're not willing to do the work to make more money at the same
Yeah,
time, right? Or don't tell me that you want to have a better relationship with your spouse or your significant other and then tell me that you don't like difficult conversations at the same time,
that's right.
right? We get to do the work. So I have very little tolerance. I remember talking on a podcast recently about someone said, with what you talk about and what you do, the line of people who need your services must be around the corner. And I said, it is. It's out the door and around the building like 4 times. But the line of people who are willing to do the work to get the results is exponentially shorter.
Yeah.
So I stand on this hill all the time. And when I look at somebody, I just had this conversation recently. I spoke at an event and they came to me and they said, Amber, every time I hear you speak, I get so motivated and I'm so inspired, and you are just an incredible person. And after hearing this same person say this 4 or 5 times to me, my response became, I don't want to be an incredible person. I want you to change your behaviors so that the next time I speak and you hear me, we're talking about the things that you've built instead of the motivation that you had for the
That's right.
5 minutes that I was talking, right?
Mhm.
That isn't something that people like. One person might look at me and say, God, Amber's such a bitch. Like, I'm never going to talk to her again because she said this thing to me. And another person might look at me and say, you know what? That's exactly what I needed to hear. Where should I start to get this taken care of? If I'm not willing to say it, I will never find out which one of those two people they are.
And that's what separates people, right? Some people take negative feedback or just uh, feedback that has been given on the face, maybe positive, negative, or neutral, and then they take it in their stride. But those who are not able to take it in their stride are not actually willing to put in the work because, that's a part of being having that ability to put in work, right? If you're just able to absorb feedback and then think about it and then work on it. Um,
Yeah.
Even filtering it is a ability not everybody is having right these days. The
Yeah, and I think like the other part of that that I think is so important
Mhm.
is they'll take negative feedback from somebody who's living a negative life and they'll like own
Okay.
that, right? So they'll be like, Joe Schmo that lives on the corner told me that my outfit looked horrible today, and now I got to go home and change my clothes, even though like there's a quote that says, "Don't take advice from someone you wouldn't take directions from."
uh,
Right? Like if whenever somebody gives me um whenever somebody gives me constructive feedback, the first thing I do is look at the source. Do I respect this person?
yeah.
Is this coming from somebody that I feel like has my best interests at heart?
Mhm.
Or is this coming from somebody who is threatened by the fact that I'm making changes in my life that they're not willing to make? So that's the first question that I'll ask myself. The second question I'll ask myself is, assuming their feedback is true, assuming that what they're telling me is accurate, changing that and acting differently, is that in alignment with who I want to be?
Mhm.
Do I want to change it? Am I congruent with the way that I acted? There may be somebody, we talked about being offended. There may be, I'm rough around the edges. My book is called Break Your Bullshit Box. People don't come to me because they want to be patted on the back. They come to me because they want results. So someone might come to me and say, Amber, actually, real conversation. My mom says, God, you swear a lot. And I said, I do.
Yeah.
Does it bother you? My mom goes, does it bother you? And she goes, I said, clearly not as much as it bothers you. I've turned down speaking engagements because they wanted me to show up differently on stage than who I authentically am. Now, does that mean I can't clean things up for a corporate environment? I come from a legal background. I don't act or talk that way in court. No, it doesn't. I can do those things. I ask myself every single time, is the way that somebody's asking me to show up or behave in alignment with the person and the message that I want to get across? And if the answer to that is no, then their feedback doesn't matter to me. That is their experience that they get to adjust. So I think there's this level of authenticity that people are missing because they're not willing to own who they really are. We get to show up authentically as us and welcome in the people who appreciate that and allow the people who don't appreciate that to go find somebody that they do align with. And when that person that we appreciate, that appreciates us, gives us constructive feedback about the way we're showing up and how that's being perceived, that's when it's time for us to listen.
Okay. Now, on that note of feedback and listening, right? Thank you so much for joining in. I feel that would be a great note to conclude this episode. We've gone a long way going from starting from human behavior to entrepreneurs. Now we're talking about general feedback in as a person. So thank you so much for joining in. It was a great conversation. I surely feel that the audience would also appreciate it. Before we close, where can people get in touch with you? How can they know more about you and probably get some feedback as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a few different ways. Probably the easiest is going to be to go to successdevelopmentsolutions.com, which is my website. You can find the podcast there. You can find access to our Facebook group there, and you can find all my social media, all of my social media there. If you are on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, or TikTok, you can find me at Amber Ray Furman, and follow me there. I do respond to all of my messages, so reach out to me, connect with me. I would love to have a conversation with anybody who's interested. And then lastly, if you're interested in the book, that is on Amazon, Break Your Bullshit Box.
Thank you so much, Amber. It was amazing having this conversation. I mean, we went deep, we went both ways, and thank you so much for joining in. To the audience who has been watching and listening intently, if you loved what we talked about, do leave a like. The comment section is open for suggestions, perspectives, and if you have any questions, you can ask that as well. And don't forget to subscribe before you close the window itself. Thank you so much for joining in. Thank you so much, Amber. It was great.
Thank you.